Ooh, can I have some?
All right. So now we're gonna move into our Tuta Loca es, where we shout out motherfuckers for doing the most. Mr. Barack Hussein coming out talking about the defund police slogan. Now, here's what, let me just go ahead and read exactly what he said before we go into it, because I don't want to paraphrase. He says, "You lost a big audience the minute you say it, which makes it a lot less likely that you're actually going to get the changes that you want done. The key is deciding, do you want to actually get something done, or do you want to feel good among the people you agree with?" Now, I have some notes. I have some notes. Because here's what I'll say. When we are playing within the context of white supremacy politics, he is 100% right. What I feel was a huge missed opportunity for him to maybe position his words differently would be to admit that the only reason why defund police doesn't work is because it's working within a white supremacist system. But it's not acknowledging that part of the reason that people are talking about defunding the police in the first place is to break the very institution that makes it unpopular to say those words. I mean, listen, it was unpopular to say free the slaves. It was unpopular to say integrate. It's been unpopular to say a lot of things in this country that have been necessary changes. So for me, this Black president, right, coming forth and saying that, it was quite disappointing. And there was something I had heard on Clubhouse actually that somebody said, and I'm not going to go and say that this is why he did this, but I will say that the trauma that ADOS people, right, so like African descendants of slaves or of American slavery, right, like can relate to is this deep nuance around the fact that the enslavement of Black people has really robbed them of an identity that is theirs, because the very country in which they are supposed to be able to identify and have a whole identity, it doesn't allow them to, outside of the constructs of the oppression and the continued slavery through other institutions, i.e. the prison to, school to prison pipeline, name them all, right? And so to me, it's like, to make that statement and make it seem like, well, if you want to get something done, that's not how you're going to get it done. So then how about you sit at the table privately with somebody and then support that, because you understand that while your point is correct for a white supremacist system within their work, which they are working it, clearly I'm passionate. I'm like, I can't even fucking speak, right?
Let's go off.
But like, rather than do that, if you're really trying to help us, then really help us. What are you doing getting interviewed and letting yourself be quoted with that? So that
your ass in the street.
Right. So that you have these middle ground people, both BIPOC, white or whatever, who can look at you and say, see, even Obama knows that's not a good idea. And we love Michelle, and it's just like, fuck you.
Just fed right into that.
Undoing so much of the work. And also
basically just undermined it.
And it's not just a slogan. People are very well studied. People are literally putting stats and numbers together for real action plans, so that the moment somebody says, yes, we'll do it, it's not like okay, so now you guys figure it out, give us what we want. They're coming to the table with very clear solutions. And there are politicians, literally people in Congress, who are supporting this movement and are being very diligent about the work. Do not get on a large platform and do that. And if you do want to do that, don't be tight when everybody's looking at you and calling you out, because a lot of these activists are looking at him fucking crazy. But you know what? Biden is just like, listen, all this like, oh, we voted to get Biden in, wonderful. It's still going to be a very middle ground American experience. We're not about to go all the way left. We're super close to weed being legal. This week there was now like in Congress, or was it in Congress? Somewhere like the proposal made it to the next step to decriminalize weed in the whole United States, right? So what I think is going to happen is that they can take liberal actions like that. They can reverse the bullshit that Trump put on the trans community and the military. They're going to start doing things that feel really radical, but they're not going to give Black people in America, and not just the diaspora Black, but Black Americans from America, they're going to still overlook the specific needs of what the community needs. And I'm not here for it. So those are my notes. I don't know what y'all think about it though.
I almost feel like my first thoughts in hearing what he said, I go back to like how people always um like to be like, oh well, like your president did XYZ, and they like point at like the negative things that Barack has done in the past and shit like that.
Yeah.
Like people in his age group all say that same thing about defund the police. They're like, oh well, like if you mean reallocating funds, just say that. Like they feel so strongly about these like terms or this slogan that they're not willing to actually look past it and do and see that the homework's being done and seeing that there's like, you know, solutions being proposed and all this shit. And so they're so stuck on like these 2 words, 3 words that they themselves are completely bypassing being able to like actually see what the movement or what people are trying to like bring about in this change. So it's like their own like ignorance, I guess, is like holding them back. Is this that same thing of like having to re-educate these old people over and over again? Like,
damn it, boomers, get it together. Okay, so first of all, I am so disappointed that Barack Jamal Hussein Obama would even
for it to be still funny.
Yes, Jamal, because you know we adopted him. So I feel like every now and then he kind of shows us how like out of touch he is when it comes to things of like the Black American experience. And him just kind of having a little bit of displacement, you know, with his youth and his upbringing. And so this is one of those times. And I'm saying that also as someone who is, I'm a Black American, I'm a Jamaican American, but I'm also technically not African American because I wasn't born here. I was born in Jamaica. I'm an import, you know? And so even though I have had an African American experience or African American upbringing as far as, you know, when I leave my home, right? I'm treated as such. But in situations like that, like there's certain things that if you haven't experienced it first and foremost in the capacity that an African American has, there's certain things that you probably shouldn't speak on, or maybe shouldn't do so as strongly and so publicly. Like that's what I call like showing your ass in the street. Like there's certain things that are, you know, to be discussed among us as a community before you go ahead and take it to the white man stage and say it on behalf of all Black people, right? Because then, just like you pointed out, that's exactly what happens, is that they kind of look for those kind of tools of division to use against us, to be like this, you know, that same like model minority bullshit, right? Where it's like, but look what this one said, but look what this one can do. And if they can do it, and if they can say that or feel that way, why can't you? You know what I mean? Because they're always kind of looking for those loopholes and arguments to like bring in, to try to like poke holes in your like whatever ground you're standing on. And so that's the only reason why I'm disappointed in it. It's like I get what he's saying and I get where he's coming from. It ain't here. But it's like in his mind it's valid, but it's not speaking to the experience of African American people. And I feel like he should have just, you know, kept quiet until he figured that out. But here we are.
Yep. And I feel like he could have done a better job of still backing up the cause. And like I said, he just shouldn't have came for the language. The language is just that, it's language. Talk about the policy, talk about what they're actually drafting and proposing, and don't try to reword it for your comfort. Right.
Give something else. Like come up with, like, you're very good at coming up with your yes we cans and things, that those taglines that people come like, you know, tag onto. Maybe like defund the police, sure, but like maybe come up with your own sort of like subdivision of that like speaks to what you're trying to bring about without undermining an entire movement that's been going on and probably would be going on with or without you. Like that's rude.
Yep.
And it seems like a lot of them are doing that thing where like they like we said before, like they're criticizing the words without proposing like compromising like,
because what it is that white people have an issue with it.
Yep. white people and because not all kinfolk, it's kinfolk, right?
Conservative
People who know or really feel comfortable within this white supremacist system and democracy, and don't want, because they know what work goes into change. They also know how viscerally white America holds on to whiteness. So they're like, I kind of don't want to live to see a civil war. Just like figure it out and like chill out. Like, and I feel like so many people have that energy of like, just worry about your family, do the best you can, and like shut the fuck up so that we don't have to have a revolution. And I'm like, y'all too comfortable.
It's
self-included,
self-included,
but
it's kind of interesting, especially following the fact that like he had that interview recently with Charlemagne where like he's talking about like making white people feel comfortable throughout his time as president, and how like that was, and sort of like juggling that, and like juggling the very fragile egos and like feelings of like white people when it came to things like that, and like him just being in that position of power, and what that did to conservatives, or what that did to white people who felt like he shouldn't be there, and you know what I mean, and how he had to sort of move and adjust in order to make them feel comfortable enough not to fucking like want to bring his whole damn institution down, or his whole damn what you call it down. What they call it?
Well,
administration.
His administration.
Administration.
But it's true because even, and like obviously like the Republicans during his time in office were impossible and made so many things impossible for him.
Trifling is what they were.
But the Democrats, being their comfortable middle ass selves that they are, also were pulling this Black man and making sure that he stayed middle, but he obliged. Is really, at the end of the day, like we can paint it as much as we want and talk about how like it's hard as a politician. And I hear that. And I don't hate Obama, actually. I like Obama. I do. But when you got to call him out, you got to call him out. Look, I like Jay-Z too, but Jay-Z ain't always right. I love me some Kanye. Yes. Kanye certainly ain't always right, but like, is true, we can both like them and criticize them. So
it's because we like them so much why we feel the need to criticize them, because if we didn't give a fuck about them, we wouldn't give a fuck about what they were saying or doing either.
Exactly.
So there's that.
Yes. Anywho, period.